My beloved child, there is a trembling in the unseen realm tonight, a shaking so strong that even the angels pause. Archangel Michael has stepped forward with a sword glowing like fire, but not the fire of comfort, the fire of warning. The message he brings is not soft, not gentle, not wrapped in calm. It comes wrapped in urgency, in divine seriousness, in a tone heaven rarely uses unless a soul is standing at a dangerous edge. He says your name hath been called in the course of heaven, not for judgment but for intervention. Because something around you, something inside your atmosphere, something connected to your recent choices, words, or alignments has stirred divine anger. But the anger of punishment, but the anger of predation. Yes, heaven becomes fierce when a chosen soul is drifting toward the wrong doorway. And Michael repeats the same line again and again. Act now. Do not delay. This is the final flashing before the consequence begins. My child, you have been feeling it. That restlessness, a heaviness in your chest, that strange spiritual tension that makes no sense. It is not anxiety. It is not imagination. Heaven has been pulling at you for days, maybe weeks, trying to turn your steps before the wrong connection, the wrong habit, the wrong silence, where the wrong agreement opens a doorway that darkness has been waiting for. Listen carefully. Michael is not here to accuse you. He is here to interrupt you. He says, tell them this is their last grace alert, the final one they will receive in this tone. Heaven never speaks like this unless there is something extremely important at stake. There is a spiritual misalignment around you, something that looks small, something you may have shrugged off, something you thought was harmless, but heaven sees it differently. Heaven sees the chain reaction it could cause. Heaven sees the people it could hurt. Heaven sees the spiritual consequences you cannot see yet. And so Michael's voice rises, not in anger at you, but anger for you, anger against the forces trying to influence you. My child, this is not about religion. This is not about being perfect. This is about a critical moment where one single decision can shift the trajectory of your life. Heaven is shouting your name because they refuse to lose you. Michael shows me a vision. Your timeline split in two. One line is bright, filled with restoration, clarity, and divine order. The other is chaotic, filled with regret and delays that could take months or years to correct. He says, tell them the choice they make in this season will determine which timeline they walk into. And this is why the title flashed onto your screen with such intensity. This is why you felt that strange pull to open this message within seconds. Because the spiritual window is short. You were meant to see this right now. Not later. Not tomorrow. Now. Something important is being exposed in your life. Either a person, a pattern, or a hidden motive. And heaven is angry because you have tolerated something you were never meant to tolerate. You brushed off signs. You ignored the heaviness. You excused the behavior. You postponed the decision you needed to make. But heaven will not allow the enemy to keep using your silence as a doorway. Michael says, call them back. Wake them. Shake them. Do not let them walk blind into the trap that has been set. My child, you are standing at a spiritual intersection you cannot afford to ignore. There is a shift coming. A revelation. A moment where something you thought you understood will suddenly appear in its true form. And once that truth is revealed, your spirit will understand why heaven sounded this alarm so loudly. Before this moment passes, pause, breathe, and listen. Because the next lines of this message will open the exact clarity you have been missing. What is hidden will come to light. What is dangerous will be shown. What is misaligned will be corrected. And what is meant for your future will be protected. Hold on, because what you are about to hear next is the turning point. Type "I hear" the warning in the comments if this message is striking your spirit. Lesson code 144 is now activated. Hold tight, the next revelation will shift everything. You'll want to see what unfolds next. Chosen soul, there is something Archangel Michael is urging you to understand before anything else unfolds. He is standing beside you, not as a distant messenger, but as a warrior who has watched your journey closely. He knows the exact moment your spirit dimmed. He knows the precise second your peace shifted. He knows the hidden reason heaven's anger rose. Not because God wants to punish you, but because something has come too close. Something that threatens your divine path. Something that has touched a boundary heaven never intended to be touched. Michael speaks with the firmness of a guardian who refuses to let darkness claim what heaven has marked as sacred. He whispers, there is interference around them. They believe it is normal, but it is not. They think it is coincidence, but it is not. They think it is temporary, but it is not. My child, the shift you have felt lately, the tension, the heaviness, the unexplained frustration, did not come from nowhere. Heaven hath been signaling that a spiritual contamination has begun to creep into your environment. It may have started with a single conversation, a single decision, a single compromise. But heaven sees how far that small crack can spread if it is not sealed immediately. God is angry not at you, but at what has tried to influence you, at what has tried to distort your judgment, at what has attempted to redirect your destiny. Michael reveals that the anger in the heavens is a protective flame, burning against the forces that have been circling you quietly. You may think you're handling everything. You may think you're strong enough to manage it. But heaven sees the larger picture. Heaven sees the long-term danger. Heaven sees that if you continue ignoring the subtle spiritual signs, you may walk into consequences that were never meant to be your portion. There are moments when God does not whisper, yours. This is one of those moments. There is a battle happening around you that you cannot see, and Michael has been fighting fiercely on your behalf. He shows me an image of you standing in a room full of open doors. Some doors lead to healing, clarity, and alignment. Others lead to confusion, delay, and spiritual drain. You have been unknowingly standing too close to the wrong door. The danger is not that you walked through it. The danger is that your hesitation, your uncertainty, your silence has allowed the enemy to pull the door wider. Heaven cannot allow that any longer. My child, you have been carrying weight that does not belong to you. You have been tolerating behaviors, tolerating patterns, tolerating atmospheres that heaven had been trying to separate you from. You have been resisting a change that your spirit has already agreed to, even if your mind is still catching up. Michael says, tell them they are delaying what God has already resolved in the spirit. The anger you feel within yourself, the frustration, the emotional pressure, the sudden tears, is not weakness. It is your spirit pushing you to realign with the timeline God wrote for you. There is a reason this message found you at the exact moment it did. Heaven is intervening because something is about to be exposed. A truth is about to break through. A hidden motive is about to surface. Someone's real intentions are about to show. This exposure will shock you at first, but it will free you. Michael is positioning you to receive the truth without being destroyed by it. That is why this warning feels heavy. Heaven does not give soft messages when a strong reality is coming. You must understand this. The divine anger rising is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. God becomes fierce when you are in danger because he sees what your eyes cannot. He sees the spiritual consequence of one wrong conversation, one wrong connection, one wrong silence. He sees the ripple effect it will create in your relationships, your mental health, your finances, your purpose. And he is stopping it now before it becomes irreversible. Michael keeps repeating, they must act. They must respond. They must choose. This is a season of spiritual decision. If you choose alignment, heaven will accelerate you. If you choose to ignore the warning, delays will thicken. Closed doors will stay closed. Opportunities will pause. Not because God is punishing you, but because heaven refuses to bless ground that is out of order. This warning is your doorway back into the flow of divine protection. You are not losing time. You are being given a chance to redeem it. There is something specific you need to release. You already know what it is. You have felt the nudge. You have felt the conviction. You have felt the discomfort. You have felt the spiritual pressure around it. This is your confirmation. Michael is not asking you to analyze it. He is asking you to step back from it. Heaven will reveal the details soon, but you must reposition yourself now. My child, the next revelation will expose the exact source of the spiritual anger you have been feeling. It will show you the real root behind the heaviness. It will show you what heaven is protecting you from. Do not move away now. You are standing at the gateway of clarity. Before the next moment unfolds, pause and prepare your spirit. What comes next will open your eyes. Type "I step back into alignment" in the comments if your spirit feels this calling. Blessing code 229 is being released over you. Hold on, because the next unveiling will reshape your understanding completely. Beloved one, there is a moment in every spiritual journey when heaven stops whispering and begins speaking with thunder. You have reached that moment. Archangel Michael is no longer standing in the distance. He has stepped into your atmosphere with a force that cannot be ignored. The air around your life has shifted, and even if you cannot fully articulate it, your soul has sensed it. There has been a disturbance, a shaking, an invisible ripple that has unsettled your spirit for weeks. You thought it was stress. You thought it was overthinking. You thought it was exhaustion. But Michael reveals that what you've been feeling is the spiritual vibration of something being exposed behind the scenes. Heaven's anger is rising because someone or something has been mishandling your spirit. Sometimes the divine becomes fierce not because a person committed a dramatic sin, but because a chosen soul has allowed the wrong energy, the wrong influence, the wrong voice to come too close. You may not realize it, but a spiritual boundary has been crossed. Someone's words have pierced too deeply into your emotional realm. Someone's presence has drained your spiritual clarity. Someone's intentions have been masked behind politeness, leaving you vulnerable to unseen manipulation. God saw it long before you did, and heaven has decided that this interference must stop now. Archangel Michael shows me a vision of a dark thread connecting to your life, so thin that you barely noticed it, yet so strong that it slowly began pulling your peace out of alignment. This dark thread could be a person, a habit, a toxic pattern, or even a silent compromise you made without understanding the spiritual cost. It might even be a decision you made in frustration, one that seemed small on the surface but opened a doorway that heaven never approved. And now, like a surgeon stepping in before an infection spreads, heaven is intervening with urgency. Michael says, tell them this is not ordinary. This is a spiritual attempt to redirect their destiny. My child, that is why the message on your screen felt intense. That is why your heart reacted before your mind understood. Heaven was flashing a warning because time is sensitive. Something is reaching its peak point. A revelation is about to break open. A truth is about to rise from the shadows. You may think you know who is for you and who is against you, but something deeper is hiding beneath the surface. something heaven is preparing to reveal so you can escape a spiritual trap before it tightens. You have been carrying a weight that does not belong to you. The confusion, the repeated emotional strain, the feeling that something is off. These are the signs that heaven has been waiting for you to take seriously. God is not angry with your heart. He is angry with the forces trying to thrust us into it. Divine anger is a shield, not a punishment. It is heaven declaring that your purpose is too powerful, your destiny too significant, your calling too sacred to be tampered with. Michael wants you to understand this clearly. Your delay in responding has given the enemy more room than intended. This does not mean you have failed. It means God is stepping in before failure becomes possible. Heaven is confronting the attack before you even knew how deep it ran. Sometimes God's fiercest warnings come before the deepest blessings. And right now, heaven is preparing you for a cleansing. What must leave your life will leave. What must be exposed will be exposed. What must be corrected will be corrected. Because the destiny ahead of you requires clean hands, clear vision, and a protected heart. There is a spiritual responsibility now placed in your hands, not to figure everything out, but to obey the inner pull of heaven. If your spirit has been sensing distance, if your peace has been shaking, if your discernment has been sharpening, it is because Michael has been stirring your awareness. Your spiritual eyes are opening. You are being positioned to recognize what you once ignored. You are being awakened so that what once looked harmless now appears dangerous. Heaven is rewriting your boundaries, strengthening your intuition, and demanding action. My child, the next revelation will point directly to the source of divine anger. You will finally understand why heaven has been sounding the alarm so loudly. Before we move forward, still your spirit. The message that comes next will not only confirm what you have been sensing, it will free you from the invisible grip that has been tightening around your destiny. But before the next moment unfolds, take a breath. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are being protected by the highest kingdom and guarded by the fiercest archangel. The unfolding truth will change the direction of your life if you allow heaven to lead you through it. Type "I awaken to the truth" in the comments if your spirit receives this clarity. Blessing code 311 has now been released over your life. And before you move forward, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, comment to keep the message flowing, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven is trying to say to you. Your interaction pushes this message into the hands of the ones God is urgently trying to reach. Beloved soul, since the theme of this message is about divine anger rising to protect you, let me speak this with purity. When you support this mission, you help heaven pull more people out of spiritual danger. Every seed you sow becomes light for someone standing in darkness. God said, "My word will not return void," and when you help carry that word, you become part of heaven's harvest. I am asking you now, as one who has walked with you through this revelation, step into the flow of what God is doing. Stand with this mission through super thanks, membership, or by giving through the PayPal link in the description. Your support becomes a prophetic act, releasing oil, clarity, and protection over your own life. Those who sow into divine warnings reap divine preservation. Move now, and heaven will honor your obedience. Precious one, there is a spiritual weight pressing into this moment, and Archangel Michael is urging you to stay fully present because what unfolds here will uncover the very thing heaven has been trying to shield you from. You have felt the tension building. You sense that something around you has been shifting, but you couldn't put your finger on what it was. You felt yourself becoming uneasy in moments that used to feel normal. You noticed your instincts sharpening, your discernment tightening, your emotions reacting more strongly than usual. These were not random changes. They were the early indicators of a deeper interference that heaven has been preparing to confront. Michael stands beside you now with a clarity that strikes through the fog. He reveals that divine anger has been rising not because you are failing, but because someone or something in your environment has crossed a spiritual line. This boundary was invisible to you, but it was clear to heaven. And now the time has come for exposure. There is a force, a habit, a pattern, or a disguised influence that has been quietly tugging at your destiny, pulling you off balance, and weakening your spiritual posture. You may not have recognized it outright, but you have absolutely felt its effects. Heaven's anger is not directed at your humanity. It is directed at the spiritual violation that attempted to access your life. Michael says they allowed something too close, not knowing the cost. They tolerated what they should have resisted. They trusted what carried hidden danger. This does not make you guilty. It makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability is exactly what the enemy targets. Heaven has watched you wrestle with confusion. Heaven has watched you question your own judgment. Heaven has watched you doubt your worth, your intuition, your identity. But the time for confusion ends now. Michael opens a vision before me. In this vision, I see a door slightly cracked open. Light is pouring from one side, and shadows leak from the other. You have been standing between these two realms, pulled by the divine, yet distracted by something that refuses to release its grip on you. That crack in the door symbolizes the small access point the enemy has been using. It doesn't take a wide opening. It only takes a moment of hesitation, a moment of emotional weakness, a moment of spiritual fatigue. But heaven, in its mercy, is sealing the crack. The anger you feel rising inside yourself at times, the frustration, the unexplained irritation, the sudden moments of emotional overwhelm, these are manifestations of divine agitation. They are signals that your spirit is outgrowing something, that your soul is rejecting what your mind is still trying to rationalize. God is not punishing you. God is pulling you away from danger. And heaven's firmness in this moment is a form of rescue. Michael says, tell them the enemy had been whispering in places they don't even realize. That whisper could be disguised as fear, self-doubt, comparison, guilt, or emotional attachment. It could be coming from someone whose presence drains more than it uplifts. It could be coming from a situation you've kept trying to fix, even though heaven has already released you from it. It could be coming from an internal pattern you no longer need to carry, something you picked up from old wounds, outdated versions of yourself, or environments you have spiritually outgrown. But here is the truth that heaven needs you to understand. This interference was never strong enough to destroy you. It could only distract you. It could only delay you. It could only exhaust you. And divine anger rises when delay threatens divine timing. God is stepping in because your next season cannot afford contamination. Your next elevation cannot carry residue. Your next blessing cannot be shared with the wrong energy. Heaven is cleansing your path because your calling is entering a sharper, more powerful phase. Michael reveals that something is about to break off your life. A tie, a pattern, a spiritual attachment, a draining influence, a hidden interference. You may feel emotional when it happens because release often feels like loss at first. But heaven sees what is ahead. Your spirit will breathe again. Your clarity will return. Your confidence will sharpen. Your peace will rise. You are not being punished. You are being purified. This is where the shift happens. You are being spiritually repositioned. You are being pulled back into the divine timeline. You are being redirected to the path that holds restoration, elevation, and long-awaited answers. But before you can walk into that, you must allow heaven to complete the exposure. The truth will not harm you. It will free you. What is revealed next will illuminate the exact reason God's anger rose with such intensity. And once you see it clearly, you will understand why this message had to reach you now. Michael says, prepare them. The unveiling is close. Your spirit already senses it. Something inside you is leaning forward, waiting for the clarity that has been missing. You are moments away from the revelation that will break the last chain off your life. Do not step away now. This is where the shift accelerates. This is where the unseen becomes visible. This is where heaven begins to move openly on your behalf. Before we move to what comes next, take a moment and ground your spirit. What is coming will redefine your understanding of the battle you have been fighting. And when that clarity arrives, your soul will finally breathe. Type I receive the cleansing in the comments if your spirit is ready for this next unveiling. Blessing code 558 has now been released over you. Wait for what comes next. This is where everything begins to unfold. Beloved soul, there is a deep stirring in the atmosphere around you right now, and Archangel Michael is urging you not to underestimate what you are about to hear. You have been drawn step by step through this message for a reason far greater than you realize. Something in your life has been clouded, distorted, or hidden, and heaven has waited patiently for the perfect moment to uncover it. That moment is here. What happens in this part will begin to expose the true source of the spiritual agitation, the heaviness, the confusion, and the inner conflict you've been carrying. You may think you have seen hints of the problem, but Michael reveals that the root lies deeper than the surface. And now, heaven is turning the light directly onto it. You have been sensing discomfort in places that used to feel safe. You have felt a subtle shift in energies around you, almost as if someone's intentions changed without explanation. One day everything felt normal, and the next something felt off, misaligned, or spiritually unsettling. That sensation was not your imagination. Heaven was alerting you that a spiritual influence, human or unseen, was beginning to operate outside of the boundaries God set for your life. You may not have confronted it yet. You may not have spoken about it yet. You may have brushed it aside or tried to convince yourself it was nothing. But heaven sees what your heart has tried to ignore. Michael now shows me an image of a mirror, cracked right through the center. It represents how someone in your environment has not been reflecting their true self. Their outward behavior has not matched their inner intentions. Their words have not aligned with their actions. Their tone has not matched their spirit. There has been a double layer around them, one visible, one hidden. And you, being kind-hearted, empathetic, and spiritually sensitive, have tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. But heaven says the time for excuses is over. Divine anger has risen because the deception has lingered long enough. This does not mean this person is your enemy, but it does mean they have carried an influence that was never authorized to shape your emotions, decisions, or path. You may have allowed them too close. You may have opened your heart wider than heaven intended. You may have been giving energy, time, loyalty, or attention to someone who was not spiritually grounded enough to hold that position in your life. Heaven has watched this imbalance grow. Heaven has watched you shrink parts of yourself to keep peace. Heaven has watched you internalize confusion that was never yours to carry. And heaven has had enough. Michael says, tell them that the interference came from what they tolerated, not what they welcomed. This means you were not foolish, you were compassionate. You were not careless, you were trusting. You were not spiritually blind, you were hopeful. But even hope has boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed, divine intervention begins. There is a connection in your life that started pure but became polluted. Something shifted. Something changed. Something entered the atmosphere through a small doorway. An insecurity, a misunderstanding, a hidden jealousy, a secret disappointment, or an emotional wound the other person never resolved. Whatever it was, it began attaching itself to you. Their emotional instability drained your clarity. Their fears began projecting onto your choices. Their unresolved issues began leaking into your spirit. And slowly, without realizing it, you began carrying weight that heaven never assigned to you. God's anger rises not because he is disappointed, but because he refuses to let someone else's shadows dim your calling. You are entering a season that requires your spirit to be sharp, stable, and free from unnecessary emotional entanglements. You cannot afford to be spiritually tied to someone who operates from confusion, while heaven is trying to elevate you into purpose. Divine anger is the force that breaks these attachments when you are too tired, too loyal, or too emotionally invested to break them yourself. Michael reveals something important. You did not lose direction. Someone's influence blurred your vision. But heaven is restoring that vision now. Heaven is removing the fog that has surrounded your mind. Heaven is reclaiming your spiritual clarity. You will notice, even in the coming days, that your instincts grow sharper, that your peace becomes more selective, that your tolerance for draining energy becomes almost non-existent. This is not coldness. This is spiritual purification. There is also something else heaven is preparing you for. Exposure does not always mean confrontation. Sometimes exposure simply means seeing the truth, accepting the truth, and choosing a different path. God is not calling you to fight. God is calling you to walk away from certain influences so he can bring alignment back into your atmosphere. You will not lose anything you were meant to keep. And you will not keep anything that heaven has already removed its hand from. My child, there is a deeper truth behind all of this. The interference that came into your life was not just emotional or relational. It was spiritual. Someone or something in your environment carried energy that disrupted your destiny flow. This could have been jealousy, bitterness, hidden competition, manipulation, or even unspoken resentment. These things create spiritual atmospheres, and you absorb them without realizing it. But heaven is breaking that energy off your life now. Michael says, the next revelation will show them exactly what must be removed. And once you see it clearly, you will feel a release so strong it will feel like a spiritual exhale. The next part will take you deeper into the core of the divine warning and lead you toward the cleansing heaven has prepared. Before stepping into that revelation, anchor your heart. What comes next will not only open your eyes, it will realign your entire destiny. Type I see the hidden truth in the comments if your spirit feels this revelation unfolding. Blessing code 909 has now been released over your life. Hold steady. The next unveiling will strike directly at the root. Beloved heart, there is a silence in the spiritual realm right now that is louder than thunder. Archangel Michael has paused, not because the message is finished, but because what comes next must be spoken with precision. This part carries the weight of revelation, and your spirit is being prepared to hear what has been hidden beneath layers of emotion, loyalty, confusion, and spiritual interference. You have reached the point in this journey where heaven begins to show you not just the symptoms, but the source. And the source is far more significant than you expected. For a long time, you have been feeling spiritually drained in ways you could not explain. Moments that should have brought peace instead brought discomfort. People who once felt safe began feeling unpredictable. Environments that felt familiar started feeling spiritually heavy. You tried to brush it off as stress, fatigue, or overthinking. But heaven reveals that these sensations were not random. They were warnings. They were alerts from your spirit, trying to rise above your logic. They were the early signs of a spiritual imbalance that needed your attention long before this message appeared in your life. Michael steps forward now with an authority that feels like fire. He reveals that someone, knowingly or unknowingly, created an emotional or spiritual pull on your life, one that has not been healthy, aligned, or God-ordained. This pull could be coming from a relationship, a friendship, a habit, a responsibility, or even a long-standing emotional tie that you thought you had under control. But heaven saw how deeply this attachment began affecting your clarity, your purpose, your mood, and your destiny flow. This influence did not always look harmful. At first, it may have seemed comforting, familiar, or supportive. But somewhere along the way, the energy shifted. Heaven watched as the connection became draining rather than uplifting, confusing rather than clarifying, heavy rather than peaceful. And instead of pulling you toward your purpose, it began pulling you away from it. God's anger rose because this interference grew too bold. It started touching areas of your spirit that were meant to stay protected. It began altering decisions you were meant to make with divine clarity. It began influencing your emotional rhythm in ways that disrupted your spiritual direction. Heaven could not stay quiet. Heaven could not remain gentle. Heaven had to intervene with authority. Michael says, they do not realize how much they've been absorbing from someone else's storm. This is the truth you have not fully seen yet. You have been carrying emotions that are not yours. You have been fighting battles that were never assigned to you. You have been feeling pressures that originated in someone else's wounds, fears, insecurities, or spiritual instability. Because of your compassion, you became a shield. Because of your loyalty, you became a sponge. Because of your sensitivity, you became receptive to energy that your spirit was never meant to hold. This is why your peace was disrupted. This is why your intuition felt scrambled. This is why you began second-guessing yourself. This is why you could feel heaviness even in silence. The attachment, the tie, the bond, the spiritual exchange, whatever form it took, was pulling from you more than it was pouring into you. And when a chosen soul is being drained, heaven takes it personally. The divine anger rising is not punishment. It is rescue. It is heaven reclaiming the parts of you that have been slipping away without your awareness. It is God removing unauthorized access to your spirit. It is Michael severing threads that were never meant to hold you. And it is your own spirit awakening from a fog it didn't realize it had been living under. Michael is revealing the root now. Someone in your life has been emotionally or spiritually leaning on you in ways that became unhealthy. They may not have meant harm. They may not even understand what they were doing. But their instability became your burden. Their fear became your confusion. Their inconsistency became your hesitation. Their hidden emotions became your spiritual imbalance. Whether intentional or accidental, their energy penetrated your peace. Heaven cannot and will not allow this pattern to continue. You must understand this. Your spirit has been signaling that it is ready for freedom. It is ready for clarity. It is ready for separation from what has been draining you. You may feel guilty about stepping back. You may feel obligated to stay connected. You may feel torn between compassion and exhaustion. But heaven sees your heart. Heaven knows you have given more than enough. Heaven knows you have held on longer than you should have. And heaven is stepping in now, not to take something from you, but to protect what is sacred within you. Michael reveals that the exposure coming next will be gentle but undeniable. You will begin to see the signs clearly. Their behavior will reveal itself, Their intentions will become transparent. Their emotional patterns will show their true roots. And the moment you see it, everything will make sense. The heaviness, the confusion, the shift in your energy, the divine anger, the urgency of this message. God's intervention is not about destroying the connection. It is about restoring your alignment. The cleansing that is coming will set you free from emotional weight you were never meant to carry. You will wake up feeling lighter. You will sense your spiritual authority returning. You will begin to hear God more clearly. Your mind will unclutter. Your intuition will sharpen. Your heart will steady. Heaven is not taking something away from you. Heaven is returning you to yourself. My child, what comes next will reveal the final layer of this divine warning. Stay close. Stay attentive. Stay spiritually awake. Heaven is not finished speaking. Type "I break every draining TIE" in the comments if this message is touching the hidden places of your spirit. Blessing code 717 has now been released over your life. Stay with this. You're approaching the moment of complete revelation. Beloved soul, there is a sacred intensity surrounding this moment, as though heaven itself is leaning closer to make sure you do not miss a single word. Archangel Michael stands with a stillness that carries weight, the kind of quiet only a warrior makes before delivering a revelation that shifts an entire destiny. You have walked through layers of warning, clarity, and exposure, and now you are approaching the deepest truth of all. Everything you have felt, every confusion, every emotional imbalance, every tension in your spirit, has been leading you to this unveiling. The divine anger rising has not been random. It has been laser-focused on something that has been affecting you far more than you realized. Michael reveals that the heaviness you have been feeling did not come from a single moment. It came from accumulation, a slow spiritual erosion, a draining influence that crept in quietly, subtly, almost invisibly. If the enemy cannot break a chosen soul in one blow, he tries to weaken them little by little, using familiar faces, familiar emotions, familiar wounds. And because you have a compassionate heart, because you carry a naturally healing spirit, you absorbed what was never yours to carry. You internalized what heaven wished to shield you from. You tried to fix what heaven wanted you to release. There is someone in your life, or a situation deeply connected to you, that has been operating under a different spiritual frequency. Their energy, their emotions, their mindset, where their unresolved wounds have been leaking into your atmosphere. Not because they are evil, but because they are spiritually unstable. Their instability has created a pull on your spirit that you were never designed to sustain. This is the root. This is what heaven has been warning you about. This is what triggered divine anger, because your destiny was being slowed down by weight that was not tied to your calling. Michael shows me a vision of you standing tall in the spirit, yet pieces of your energy are being tugged in multiple directions by invisible strings. These strings are emotional ties, unspoken expectations, one-sided spiritual dependencies, and draining patterns you try to normalize. You have been trying to be strong for others while your own soul was starving. You have been trying to pour into someone who was not pouring back into you. You have been trying to carry emotional burdens that were never assigned to your path. Heaven watched this imbalance take root, and the anger rose because the enemy began using those weaknesses as entry points. You have wondered why your confidence suddenly wavered, why your clarity felt blurry, why simple decisions became emotionally heavy. You asked yourself why you felt spiritually tired even when you did nothing strenuous. You questioned why your heart felt pressured for no clear reason. The reason is this: someone has been unintentionally drawing from your spiritual strength, and their pull increased during moments when they felt insecure, confused, or afraid. They may not even know they were doing it, but heaven does. This is why Archangel Michael stepped forward. This is why the title of this message flashed so urgently. Because the influence was beginning to touch parts of your destiny that heaven hath been preparing for a long time. Your purpose requires focus. Your calling requires stability. Your next season requires purity of spirit, and your heart cannot be entangled with someone who shifts with emotional storms. Michael says, the enemy tried to attach delay to their compassion. This is one of the most common spiritual traps for chosen souls. When someone you care about begins leaning on you too heavily, it feels like loyalty to stay, to help, to listen, to carry, to support. But heaven sees when that loyalty becomes a snare, when it begins to drain your energy, distort your direction, and blur your discernment. You were trying to love someone the way God loves, but you forgot that even God sets boundaries. Even heaven closes doors. Even angels sever ties when necessary. You have reached a moment where clarity must become your guardian. Michael is preparing you to see something that may surprise you. The person or situation draining you does not necessarily wish you harm, but their presence is out of alignment with your spiritual blueprint. And when something or someone is out of alignment, the energy becomes imbalanced. It becomes one-sided. It becomes spiritually costly. And heaven will not allow you to sacrifice your destiny for the sake of comfort or familiarity. The next layer of exposure is this. You have been giving too much from your spirit, and heaven has been trying to restore you. You have been operating from compassion, but compassion does not replace obedience. You have been operating from attachment, but attachment does not guarantee alignment. You have been operating from hope, but hope cannot override spiritual truth. Heaven is not calling you to stop caring. Heaven is calling you to stop carrying what does not belong to you. Your spirit is stronger than you realize, but even strong spirits must be protected. Michael's sword is drawn not to strike someone, but to cut the invisible cords that have entangled your emotions and diluted your inner strength. Once those cords are cut, something extraordinary will happen. Your peace will rise instantly. Your mind will clear. Your intuition will sharpen. Your energy will return. Your heart will feel lighter. You will notice the shift so clearly that you will wonder how you carried this weight for so long. Michael says, they are being prepared for a divine reset. This reset will realign your spirit, restore your boundaries, and return authority to your voice. You will no longer feel drained by conversations, expectations, or emotional chaos. You will feel your spirit reclaiming ground that was slowly slipping away. You will begin to feel like yourself again, strong, steady, sharp, awakened. The next revelation will bring everything together. Heaven is positioning you for the final exposure that will free your spirit completely. Type "I am ready" for release in the comments if your spirit is awakening to this truth. Lesson code 404 has now been activated over your life. Stay close. The next moment will reveal what the enemy hoped you would never see. Beloved one, there is a shift taking place around you so profound that even the atmosphere of your life feels different. Archangel Michael is standing closer than before, and his presence carries a seriousness that cannot be ignored. You have walked through warnings, revelations, and the exposure of draining influences. But now, heaven is ready to take you into the heart of the matter, the divine reason this message arrived with urgency, the root behind the rising anger, and the purpose behind the spiritual shaking you have been experiencing. You are entering the moment where heaven reveals not just what has been draining you, but why it was allowed to go on for so long, and what God is preparing to do with the pieces of your life that feel scattered, tired, or stretched thin. Michael reveals that the spiritual interference you have been facing was not random. Everything that has been draining you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, was targeting one specific thing: your divine momentum. The enemy knows he cannot destroy a chosen soul. He cannot stop your destiny. He cannot erase what God has written, and he cannot alter the anointing placed over your life. But he can slow you. He can delay you. He can distract you long enough for your spirit to become tired. That is why the draining connection or influence grew stronger. Not because it had power over you, but because your compassion kept the door open longer than heaven intended. Michael says, they were never weak. They were loyal. But loyalty must shift when heaven shifts. This is the truth you have struggled to accept. The draining pull you felt came from a place where your spirit was giving too much. You were trying to stabilize someone who had no intention of stabilizing themselves. You were trying to heal someone who had not chosen healing. You were trying to be a safe place for someone who did not regard your peace as sacred. Heaven sees your heart, your intentions, your sincerity, but heaven also sees when your spirit is being misused, even unintentionally. God's anger rose because your destiny was being slowed down by emotional weight that did not belong to you. Every chosen soul reaches a moment where heaven says, enough. This is taking too much from them. And that moment is now. Michael has been severing spiritual cords piece by piece, preparing you to walk freely without guilt, hesitation, or emotional confusion. The interference you felt was not just from a person. It was from the spiritual imbalance attached to that person. Their instability began shaping your atmosphere. Their fears began blocking your clarity. Your inconsistency began affecting your energy. But heaven is cleansing your environment, realigning your path, and stabilizing your spirit. You may feel something inside you shifting already. A strange kind of awakening. A rising clarity. A newfound emotional distance. A sense of peace beginning to return. This is not you becoming cold. This is you becoming free. Heaven has been lifting burdens off your shoulders that you thought were normal to carry. You have been absorbing too many emotions, too many expectations, too many responsibilities, and heaven is restoring what was drained from you through compassion without boundaries. Michael shows me a powerful image now, a cup being filled from heaven, but hands reaching to grab from it before it even fills. This is what has been happening to you. Every time God poured into you, someone or something around you was pulling from you before your spirit had the chance to be replenished. This left you constantly pouring from a half-filled cup. Heaven says this cycle is broken now. The divine anger you sensed was heaven slamming the spiritual door on anything that consumes your strength before you even receive it. You must understand how significant this turning point is. When heaven intervenes in this way, it means a major elevation is near. You are being spiritually untangled because the next phase of your destiny requires full strength, full clarity, and full alignment. The delaying influence had to be removed before God could release what comes next. You may not see all the signs yet, but the shift has already begun. The detachment you feel is not emotional numbness. It is spiritual preparation. Heaven is cleaning your atmosphere so that blessings do not get contaminated and clarity does not get distorted. Michael says, prepare them. The next movement of God will confirm everything. This means the exposure is not over yet. The truth will continue to unfold in the coming days. You will notice behaviors you didn't see before. You will hear words differently. You will sense intentions more sharply. You will begin to understand why heaven intervened with such force. The draining connection will either fall away or be transformed, but in either case, your spirit will no longer be bound to it. Now, my beloved, Before we continue toward the next revelation, it is important that you anchor yourself in this message so it reaches the ones heaven is calling as urgently as it called you. Like this message to keep the spiritual flow active. Comment to stay aligned with the frequency of this prophetic word. Share it so someone else who is trapped in spiritual exhaustion can be set free. Subscribe so that you never miss what heaven is preparing to reveal to you next. Your engagement is not just interaction. It is obedience to the pull of heaven. Type "I receive the reset" in the comments if your spirit is stepping into this new freedom. Blessing code 822 has now been released over your atmosphere. Beloved one, as heaven rises in divine anger to shield you from hidden drains and spiritual interference, remember this. When you support this mission, you help rescue countless others from the same unseen traps. Every seed you sow becomes a beam of light piercing through someone's darkness. God says, "I will multiply the bread in the hands of the willing," and today that word is alive and moving. I am inviting you, in this holy moment, to stand with this mission through super thanks, membership, or by giving through the PayPal link in the description. This act is not a donation. It is a prophetic strike against spiritual delay in your own life. When you give, heaven releases protection, clarity, and divine acceleration over your path. Step into this blessing, and let heaven honor your obedience with open doors only God can unlock. Beloved soul, there is a holy stillness falling around you now, the kind of silence that only appears when heaven is preparing to reveal the next layer of truth. Archangel Michael stands beside you, watching the shifts happening within your spirit, acknowledging the strength it has taken for you to receive every revelation so far. You have walked through warnings, exposure, and inner awakening. You have felt heaviness leave you piece by piece. You have sensed clarity slowly returning. But now you are stepping into the part of the message where heaven unveils the deeper purpose behind this entire journey. This is not just about protection. It is about transformation. It is about positioning. It is about setting the stage for the next season of your destiny. Michael reveals that this entire spiritual battle, the draining influence, the emotional fog, the divine anger rising, was preparing you for a major shift that has already begun in the unseen realm. What felt like chaos was actually construction. What felt like loss was preparation. What felt like confusion was heaven forcing everything misaligned to surface so it could be removed. God does not expose what He does not plan to replace. The cleansing happening in your atmosphere is clearing space for something new, something purer, something divinely orchestrated. You have been carrying a destiny that requires spiritual precision, not spiritual entanglement. And because of that, heaven had to confront every force, every voice, every habit, and every influence that was draining your strength. Divine anger rose because the timing of your calling is reaching a critical point. You are moving into a season where heaven needs you free from the emotional fog that has followed you. A chosen soul cannot enter their next breakthrough with hands full of yesterday's weight. Heaven is making sure you walk into your elevation uncluttered, unbothered, and unbound. Michael says they must see that nothing was taken from them. Everything was cleared for what is coming. This is important. You are not losing anything that was meant to stay. What is leaving your life, emotionally, spiritually, or relationally, is being removed because heaven has already appointed something greater in its place. You may feel moments of sadness or confusion as certain ties weaken, but that is natural. Human emotion is slow to adjust to what your spirit has already accepted. Your soul already knows this shift is necessary. Your spirit already knows heaven is preparing you for elevation. Only your mind is catching up. Heaven reveals that the draining influence you have finally been freed from was blocking more than just your peace. It was blocking divine opportunities. Every chosen soul has a spiritual rhythm, a divine flow that aligns them with the right people, the right doors, the right timing. When your energy is pulled in the wrong direction, your rhythm becomes disrupted. You begin attracting situations that mirror your exhaustion, not your destiny. You begin making decisions from survival, not purpose. You begin losing momentum because your spirit is constantly trying to recover from emotional depletion. But now, that interference has been removed, and heaven is restoring your rhythm. Michael shows me a vision, you standing on a path that was once foggy, now becoming clear. The fog is lifting. The air is lighter. The surroundings sharper. This is what spiritual clarity feels like. You will begin to notice your intuition strengthening, your dreams becoming more vivid, your mind becoming more focused. You will feel ideas return, motivation rise, and your inner voice grow louder. This is not a coincidence. This is heaven releasing your spirit from the weight that was suppressing it. The divine anger that rose was not against you. It was on behalf of you. It was heaven saying, "My child has been drained long enough. My child has carried what was not theirs long enough. My child has tolerated imbalance long enough." Heaven is more protective of you than you know. The intensity of this message reflects the intensity of your purpose. Michael says, "Tell them that release is not the end. Release is the doorway to restoration." You are stepping into the restoration phase. Heaven is preparing to give back everything you lost during the months or years of spiritual draining. Lost energy, lost confidence, lost clarity, lost opportunities, lost self-belief, lost emotional balance. Heaven restores in layers, and your first layer has already begun, the return of peace. You will soon notice that the conversations which once drained you now feel distant. The emotions that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. The thoughts that once spiraled will begin to calm. This is the fruit of spiritual separation. You are not just being freed from someone's influence. You are being freed from the version of yourself that existed under that influence. Your destiny is entering alignment. Heaven is reconfiguring your path. What seemed delayed is about to accelerate. What felt impossible is about to open. What felt distant is coming near. Michael reveals one more truth. You are being prepared for a divine appointment. A new season cannot begin until the old weight is removed. This is why this cleansing had to happen. Something is being positioned in your future, an opportunity, a connection, a calling that requires your full spiritual strength. You cannot walk into that blessing drained. You cannot walk into that season confused. You cannot walk into that purpose emotionally entangled with the wrong energy. The interference has been broken. The weight has been lifted. Now you must prepare for what heaven is sending next. Type "I walk in divine alignment" in the comments if your spirit is receiving this restoration. Blessing code 515 has now been released over your life. Stay close. What comes next will reveal why your spirit had to be freed before your destiny could open. Beloved soul, there is a deep, holy weight settling into this moment, and Archangel Michael is calling you to listen with the full attention of your spirit. You have walked through layers of clarity that many people never reach in their entire lifetime. You have peeled away draining influences, exposed hidden emotional ties, and allowed heaven to break the subtle spiritual chains that were quietly pulling you off your divine path. What you are stepping into now is not merely understanding. It is transformation at the deepest core of who you are. Heaven is not just cleansing your atmosphere. Heaven is reshaping your identity for what is coming. Michael reveals that the divine anger you felt earlier was not only about protection, it was about correction. Heaven has been correcting the emotional patterns, internal narratives, and subconscious agreements that left you vulnerable to spiritual exhaustion. This may be difficult to accept, but it is a critical truth. You have been giving too much of yourself in places where heaven wanted you to conserve. You have been investing your heart into people who were not spiritually prepared for the depth of your spirit. You have been extending your energy into situations that heaven never assigned to you. You have been trying to love without boundaries, serve without rest, and heal others without first healing yourself. But now, heaven is rearranging the structure of your spirit. Something inside you is being rebuilt. Your inner foundation is being strengthened. Your identity is being purified from the influences that tried to reshape you into someone smaller, quieter, or more exhausted than God ever intended. What you have been feeling recently is not loss. It is release. It is the letting go of old emotional echoes that no longer match the frequency of your calling. You may feel lighter. You may feel strangely detached from people or situations that once had a strong pull on you. You may feel your discernment becoming sharper, your reactions becoming calmer, your boundaries becoming stronger. This is not a personality shift. This is a spiritual upgrade. Michael says they are stepping into their true self, the self heaven wrote before the world tried to influence them. This moment is sacred. You are stepping out of spiritual entanglement and into spiritual sovereignty. You are reclaiming authority over your emotions, your choices, your peace, and your destiny. You are no longer reacting from tiredness. You are responding from clarity. You are no longer seeking validation. You are standing in identity. You are no longer pouring endlessly. You are choosing where and how you pour. And this shift is causing heaven to move even more strongly in your favor. The enemy hoped you would never reach this point. The draining influence that attached itself to you did not just want your energy. It wanted your identity. Because a chosen soul walking in full identity is powerful. A chosen soul aligned with their purpose is unstoppable. A chosen soul operating in clarity cannot be manipulated. And a chosen soul who recognizes their worth becomes spiritually untouchable. Heaven hath been preparing you for this realization. All the confusion you walked through, all the emotional noise you felt, all the heaviness you carried, it was breaking the old version of you. A version that tolerated too much. A version that forgave without boundaries. A version that stayed silent when your spirit was screaming. A version that took responsibility for emotions that were never yours to manage. Heaven needed that version to fall away so the refined, strengthened, awakened version could rise. Michael shows me an image. You standing in a field of ashes, but your spirit glowing with a fire that was not there before. The ashes represent everything that has burned away, old attachments, emotional fog, draining connections, spiritual burdens. The fire represents your emerging strength, the strength that comes from clarity, the strength that comes from knowing your worth, the strength that comes from spiritual separation, the strength that comes from heaven intervening on your behalf. You may feel like something in you has shifted forever, and that is exactly what heaven intended. The heaviness you carried was not a burden, it was a barrier breaking. The exhaustion you felt was not weakness, it was your spirit resisting the old. The emotional distance you now feel is not coldness, it is spiritual protection. Heaven is stabilizing your heart so it can no longer be shaken by the instability of others. Michael says, tell them their spirit is entering alignment with their destiny. This alignment changes everything. It changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you make decisions. It changes the people you allow close. It changes how your spirit responds to situations. It changes the direction of your life. You are no longer the version of yourself that tolerated spiritual imbalance. You are becoming the version heaven designed, empowered, discerning, steady, confident, and untouchable by low vibrations. Heaven is preparing to reveal something to you soon. An opportunity, a connection, a shift, a destiny moment that requires this upgraded version of your spirit. That is why the draining influence had to be removed. That is why divine anger had to intervene. That is why heaven had to clear your atmosphere before the next phase could begin. You cannot walk into a divine appointment carrying emotional noise from the past. You cannot step into destiny holding the hands of people who were never meant to walk into your future. You cannot rise while spiritually tied to those who have chosen not to heal. This part of the journey is about identity restoration. The next will be about destiny activation. Heaven is not done with you. Heaven is preparing you. Heaven is positioning you. Type "I rise into my true self" in the comments if your spirit is stepping into this identity shift. Blessing code 303 has now been released over your destiny. Stay with me. The next revelation will show you what heaven is preparing to bring into your life now that the draining weight is gone. Beloved soul, there is a profound quiet in the spiritual realm as you enter this moment. Not the quiet of emptiness or distance, but the quiet that comes just before a divine unveiling. Archangel Michael stands before you with a steady, unwavering presence, the kind of presence only revealed when heaven is preparing to shift the trajectory of a life. You have walked through exposure, cleansing, separation, and identity restoration. Every part of this journey was necessary. Every revelation had purpose. Every uncomfortable truth was preparing the soil of your spirit for something you were unable to receive while drained, entangled, or emotionally clouded. What comes now is the beginning of heaven revealing what had been waiting for you on the other side of this spiritual battle. Michael reveals that the divine anger which rose earlier was never meant to frighten you. It was meant to reroute you. Because your destiny is entering a stage of activation. This is where heaven begins to align the right opportunities, the right relationships, the right guidance, the right timing, and the right breakthroughs. But such alignment can only happen when your spirit is clean, your heart is unburdened, and your clarity is restored. You cannot receive divine direction while tied to what drains you. You cannot step into divine opportunity while trapped in emotional loops. You cannot hear heaven clearly when someone else's instability has been louder than your own inner voice. Now that heaven has broken the draining attachments and restored your spiritual identity, everything is shifting. The environment of your life is being purified. The atmosphere around you is becoming lighter. The divine flow that was slowed is accelerating again. You may not see the full picture yet, but your soul can already sense that the tension has broken. You may feel more intuitive, more calm, more decisive. You may feel a quiet strength rising inside you. You may even sense heaven pulling you toward something new, something higher, something purer, something that matches the version of you emerging from the ashes. Michael says, "Tell them they are entering the rebuilding phase, and heaven is their architect." This rebuilding is not about returning to who you used to be. That version of you cannot carry the weight of what heaven is releasing. This rebuilding is about stepping into the version of yourself heaven always intended. Before you were drained, before you were pulled off balance, before you absorbed burdens that were never yours. You are becoming someone stronger, wiser, sharper, and more spiritually aligned than ever before. In this phase, heaven is about to restore what was lost in the battle. Every ounce of energy that was drained will return multiplied. Every moment of confusion will be replaced with clarity. Every delay will be corrected with acceleration. Every emotional wound that came from giving too much will be healed by divine reassurance. Heaven is restoring not just your peace, but your momentum. Michael reveals that there are blessings that were set aside for you, blessings that could not enter your life until you were spiritually unentangled. These blessings require strength, boundaries, discernment, and a clean atmosphere. You had to be separated from what drained you so you could receive what empowers you. You had to be freed from emotional fog so you could recognize divine appointments. You had to be pulled out of draining influences so you could rise into influences that elevate you. Heaven is preparing to bring new people into your life, individuals who will walk with you, not drain you. People whose presence aligns with your calling. People whose energy strengthens your spirit. People who bring peace rather than confusion, clarity rather than chaos, and encouragement rather than silent depletion. Heaven is orchestrating connections that will unlock purpose, not hinder it. Michael shows me a vision of a gate opening before you. A wide, bright gate. This gate represents the season you are stepping into. The gate remained closed while you were emotionally entangled, because heaven could not allow you to enter your next chapter carrying emotional or spiritual pollution from the past. But now, the gate is beginning to open. This is the season where ideas flow, where opportunities show up unexpectedly, where clarity returns like a flood. You will begin feeling a pull toward new direction, something you were too spiritually tired to notice before. Michael says, they will soon realize that heaven did not remove something from them. Heaven removes something blocking them. This shift will confirm that truth. You will experience moments where things align effortlessly. Plans that once stalled will move forward. Relationships that once felt heavy will release. Paths that once felt impossible will straighten. Heaven is clearing your way. But there is something more. Heaven is not just restoring what was drained. It is awakening gifts inside you that were dormant. Gifts the draining influence tried to suppress. Gifts your exhaustion tried to silence. Gifts your emotional burden tried to bury. These gifts will now rise. Your intuition will sharpen. Your spiritual sensitivity will heighten. Your inner discernment will speak louder. You will see spiritual truth faster. You will recognize intentions clearly. You will feel heaven guiding you with a precision you have not felt before. This part of the journey is about readiness. Heaven wants your spirit to fully grasp the magnitude of what is coming. You are stepping into a chapter where old cycles break permanently, where old emotional patterns lose their grip, where old fears cannot follow, where old versions of yourself no longer speak. You are walking into a spiritual and emotional rebirth. This is why heaven intervened so forcefully. This is why the message came with urgency. This is why Michael stepped forward with divine anger. Because your next season is too significant, too purposeful, too divinely appointed to allow draining influences to steal its power. Michael says, prepare them. What heaven brings next will require an awakened, aligned spirit. You are ready now. Heaven has rebuilt what was broken. Heaven has restored what was drained. Heaven has strengthened what was weakened. Heaven has cleared what was cluttered. Now, heaven will reveal what has been waiting for you. Type I am ready for what heaven prepared in the comments if your spirit feels this rebuilding unfolding. Blessing code 626 has now been released over your destiny. Stay close. The next part will bring everything together and lead you into the final unveiling of heaven's message for you. Beloved soul, there is a holy gravity resting upon this moment, as though heaven itself is drawing a final breath before releasing the fullness of what you were meant to hear. Archangel Michael stands before you, not as a distant guardian, but as a witness to the transformation you have undergone through every layer of this message. You have walked through warnings, cleansing, disentanglement, identity restoration, and spiritual rebuilding. And now you have arrived at the culmination. where heaven reveals not just what was happening around you, but what is about to be released for you. This is the final unveiling, the purpose behind the urgency, the reason divine anger rose like a storm, and the truth heaven wants engraved in your spirit. Michael reveals that every draining influence you were freed from, every emotional weight lifted, every spiritual fog cleared, was making room for a season of divine alignment and acceleration. The interference you experienced was not merely a distraction. It was an attempt to derail your path at a crucial turning point. Heaven intervened because you are approaching a moment in your destiny that is time-sensitive, sacred, and deeply tied to the larger plan God has been preparing for your life. Heaven could not allow you to walk into this new season tired. Heaven could not allow you to walk into it bound. Heaven could not allow you to carry someone else's emotional or spiritual weight into a chapter designed exclusively for your elevation. The severity of the warning, the intensity of the message, the urgency of the call, it was all because the timing is divine. You are stepping into a chapter that demands your full strength, your clear mind, your steady heart, and your awakened spirit. Michael says, "Tell them this. The battle was never about the past. It was about protecting the future that is about to open. This is the truth that completes everything. Heaven did not warn you because of what was behind you. Heaven warned you because of what is ahead. Your purpose is entering a phase of manifestation. Doors that were once closed will open. Paths that were once blocked will clear. Situations that once seemed stagnant will accelerate. The shift you have been waiting for is no longer distant. It is near. It is rising. It is forming in the unseen realm as you read these words. What was draining you had to be removed because you are being positioned for divine opportunity. You are about to walk into assignments that carry weight. Your voice will matter in places where it was once ignored. Your presence will be requested in rooms where you once felt invisible. Your influence will increase. Your discernment will sharpen. Your spiritual authority will elevate. Heaven is not just restoring your strength, it is preparing to expand your territory. Michael shows me a vision of a large, radiant doorway. The doorway is glowing from the inside as though something extraordinary is waiting behind it. This is the door heaven has been trying to lead you toward. This door represents new beginnings, new spiritual assignments, new breakthroughs, new relationships, new levels of purpose. This door represents the chapter where what you prayed for, cried for, and waited for begins to unfold. You were not ready to walk through it when you were spiritually entangled. But now, heaven says you are ready. Michael whispers, the path ahead will not look like the path behind them. You will not repeat old cycles. You will not step into old patterns. You will not be pulled backward. You will not be slowed by emotional drains. You will not carry burdens that are not yours. You will move with confidence, clarity, and divine direction. The atmosphere around your life has shifted permanently. What once weighed you down will no longer have authority. What once drained you will no longer hold access. What once confused you will now be seen with spiritual precision. This new chapter is not just about breakthrough. It is about becoming the version of yourself heaven has long been shaping. A version of you that is strong yet peaceful, soft yet discerning, loving yet protected, compassionate yet boundaried. That version of you will thrive in the environments heaven is sending you into. The opportunities waiting for you do not require the tired version of your spirit. They require the awakened version that now stands before heaven with strength and clarity. Michael says, tell them their spirit is no longer trembling. It is standing. And this is the transformation heaven celebrates. You are not fragile. You are not unstable. You are not confused. You are not lost. You are stepping into alignment with divine timing. You are stepping into the authority you forgot you had. You are stepping into opportunities designed specifically for your gifting, your heart, and your destiny. Heaven is elevating you because you survived what was meant to break you. You overcame what was meant to drain you. You awakened during a season meant to silence you. That is why heaven is ready to reward you. Now, heaven calls you to step into this new season consciously. Not with hesitation, not with fear, not with guilt, but with expectation, with readiness, with the knowing that what is coming next is divine and purposeful. The battles you faced were the price of this level. The cleansing was preparation. The exposure was protection. And the divine anger rising was heaven's way of saying, "My child will not enter their next chapter wounded." This is the moment where you declare your readiness to walk into the fullness of your calling. Type "I step into my divine season" in the comments if your spirit is ready. Blessing code 1000 has now been released over your life. Before you continue, beloved soul, take a moment to help this message reach the ones heaven is urgently calling. Like this message to boost its spiritual reach. Share it with someone who needs a divine awakening. Comment to stay connected to the flow of this prophetic word. Subscribe so that you never miss another message heaven intends for you. Your engagement spreads light into the places where darkness has taken hold. Beloved one, as this message closes, hear this with the fullness of your spirit. When you support this mission, you help carry heaven's warnings, heaven's comfort, and heaven's deliverance to souls who are standing on the same spiritual edge you were rescued from. God says, "Is not my word like fire?" And when you stand with this channel through super thanks, membership, or by giving through the PayPal link in the description, you become a carrier of that fire. I am inviting you now, not as a request, but as a divine moment of alignment. Join hands with this mission so more souls can be awakened, protected, and redirected before it is too late. Your giving becomes a prophetic act that breaks chains, opens gates, and releases abundance into your own life. Heaven watches the givers, and heaven rewards those who sow into its work. Step into this holy partnership now, and let God multiply your seed with favor, protection, and destiny-shifting breakthroughs.